Fujitsu V8 Supercar Series is a place where you can make or break your career. Last year, Jonathan Webb stood tall. He's now managed to grab the Fujitsu Series Championship. And this year has taken the ultimate step up into the main game.
It's Jonathan Webb, qualified 14th and finished 8th. Did a really good job.
Now it's a new year with new faces, but the goal remains the same. The search for the future stars of V8 Supercar racing. So if you want to be a V8 Supercar star, this is the place to stake your claim. And Jim Beam Racing's James Courtney's with me for this first round. We're going to see someone one day who's going to become a star and start here.
Yeah, that's right. I think Winterbottom come through the category and quite a few of the others. And, you know, it's a great place to hone your skills, great place to learn the tracks, the cars, the teams. It's in front of the team owners, place to be.
Adelaide this weekend, we see nearly half the field complete rookies to V8 Supercars. What a track to start.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard one to come to, a street circuit. Lots of walls, no runoff. You make a mistake, it's going to hurt here.
We're really looking forward to the 7-round championship. So let's have a look at who's in the field. With 7 rounds and 18 races ahead of us, it's hard to look past last year's runner-up James Moffat as an early favourite. Driving a car prepared by Ford Performance Racing, the second-generation star isn't just aiming at the title. He's also building up experience before a Bathurst assault with the work squad.
The DNA of my car is the same as what Frosty and Richo are driving in the main series, so I'm not quite sure who I'm driving with yet. But either way, I can't wait till September and Phillip Island to come around, and then of course Bathurst. It's going to be a massive thrill and I guess a dream come true.
The man that Moffat snatched the series runner-up spot from in the last round last year is back as well. David Russell switches to MW Motorsport and should already have the winning feeling. After all, he's now with the 2009 championship winning team. He beat Moffat here last year, but isn't expecting big things this weekend, given he's adapting to a new environment in a last-minute deal.
I said to the guys, it's all it is getting in tune with the car. It's a bit like sitting down at a new workspace and the computer's in a different spot and the mouse is on the wrong side, and you know, it's some of those things that we need to get used to, and yeah, it's something that I'm looking forward to.
In addition to Russell, Matthew White's team will run a car for the reborn Team Kiwi with driver Matthew Hamilton. Another Kiwi, Ant Pedersen, takes over the car driven to the title last year by Jonathan Webb. All up, there's 8 rookies in the 19-driver field, and none more promising than reigning Formula Ford champ Nick Percat, who makes his debut on home soil in a former HRT Commodore. His measuring stick will be 2007 Formula Ford champ Tim Blanchard, who returns to racing in the Sonic Ford, vacated by Moffat. Stone Brothers Racing have hired 16-year-old karting prodigy Scott McLaughlin, but he needs a few more endorsements before CAMS will grant him a national licence. So this weekend, NZ V8 champ John McIntyre takes the reins of the Fujitsu Falcon. McIntyre isn't the only driver making a one-off start that could upset the hopes of the series regulars. 2008 Fujitsu Series champion Steve Owen is making an appearance in a Greg Murphy Racing Commodore. The same car raced last season by Jason Bargwanna. The Victorian won the round here 2 years ago and knows that time in the car will keep him sharp before he co-drives later in the year with Jamie Whincup.
Well, it's great for me because it gives me a chance to do miles in a good car at a big race weekend. It's good for Vodafone because, you know, it's more miles for me, so that it's less miles they have to give me throughout the year at test days and at ride days and stuff like that. So it works out well for everyone.
Markus Sukanovic was sidelined for a full season after a crash in testing. But the former V8 Utes champion hopes that one day he can have the same success in this category as the last.
These V8 Supercars are a very unique driving style and obviously a fair bit different from the V8 Utes in which I've come from. So it is quite a challenging step to adjust.
Getting set for the first race of the season in 2010. Cars on the warm-up lap for this two-race weekend on the streets of Adelaide. And James, this track, it's a beauty.
Yeah, it's got everything, Noons. It's got high-speed chicanes, a couple of 90 degrees, a lot of curb action, and walls are pretty tight.
And you can attack it and you get rewarded, but if you go over the line, it's going to hurt.
It punishes you hard.
14 corners in total, 3.2 kilometres, a shortened version of the Formula One Grand Prix circuit. Plenty of action in practice and qualifying, and young rookie Matthew Hamilton found the wall a couple of times.
Yeah, there's a lot going on for this young rookie here, and here's a classic case of worrying about what's going on in front of him, where really he's got to be aware of what's going on around him.
Paul Fiore ran down the escape road. Aaron McGill, the most experienced man in the field, a little sideways. Now, James Moffat was one of 5 drivers who lost their fastest qualifying time for cutting the curbs at turn 2, but the Armour All pole position went to Steve Owen, the 5th of his Fujitsu Series career, and he picks up $2,000 and a new qualifying record. So Steve Owen will start from pole, the first ever pole for Greg Murphy Racing. James Moffat will line up alongside, and then John McIntyre and last year's runner-up David Russell. So plenty of experienced drivers at the front of the field.
Yeah, it should be. Hopefully these guys don't run away with it, so we need them to help the rookies out through here.
Drew Russell, great job expanding to a 2-car team with younger brother Aaron this weekend. Jeff Emery now running a car run by Greg Murphy Racing. Adam Wallace joining back in the series with the next PWR Racing Commodore. And Paul Morris has taken over the Roadwise Commodore from Phil Foster, who did not meet the qualifying cutoff.
Should be interesting with Morris in there, shouldn't it?
Oh, how could it ever not be? He starts from pit lane. Owen and Moffat get us going in 2010 on the streets of Adelaide. Great start from Tim Blanchard in the background, but it's Owen versus Moffat to the centre chicane, and the Falcon will argue the point. Owen out through the curbs, and Moffat takes the lead.
Just a hairy start there. It could have got pretty messy.
And McIntyre, John McIntyre, the Fujitsu Falcon, is sniffing around. What a start too. The sip and save Commodore of Nick Percat is up to 4th.
You know, he's done a great job for one of the first starts for his career in one of these cars.
And this late stage of the day, the sun's an issue. This 24-lap opening race of the season. The shadows on the road play a part, but Owen is now through to the lead. McIntyre second, so Moffat slips back in the order. And the former Fujitsu champ has got clean air.
Well, Johnny Mac's done a great job here. He's running up with the big guys in the front. Hopefully he can hang in there.
Look at them all attacking turn 9. This is the best passing chance on the circuit.
Great opportunity on the first lap too to get a couple of free spots, but everyone looks pretty clean through there, so no free spots today, Nunes.
Don't worry, we've got 18 races to go for the season. McIntyre, the car, stepping out on the run back into the racecourse section.
It's pretty tricky curb, that one. It can catch the rear of the car, so you have to attack it hard or not use it at all.
Owen, McIntyre and Moffat, 1, 2, 3 at the end of the opening lap. There's Drew Russell, Jeff Emery, Ant Pedersen. Big lock-up from Marcus Sukanovic in a car that's been completely rebuilt since that massive testing crash that he had at Winton last year. But Steve Owen is really showing the sort of class we expected.
Moffat's putting a lot of heat on McIntyre here.
The two Falcons really getting stuck into it here, but the Commodore has got away. Nick Percat, first ever V8 race, and he's hanging on to these two.
No, he's doing a great job, but I think Moffat's going to be lunging here shortly. His car looks a lot better than McIntyre's.
The car that Moffat's driving was Michael Patrici's car in 2008. It wasn't used last year. It sat around the FPR workshops, and they've dusted it off and brought it back out. And look at this shot, turn 8. 245 k's an hour, back to 200.
Can slow down quite quickly there if you get it wrong. Off the start here, there's a couple of big mistakes. David Russell didn't really get off the line too well, which is quite surprising. He would have done a lot of starts in these cars in the past.
Not surprising, though, to see Ant Pedersen, first-timer in the V8s, in the Jonathan Webb car, slow away. And how close was this?
He's lucky he doesn't do any damage here, because that's a big hit on the front right there for Owen.
They all managed to get their way through, and this is Moffat giving the Kiwi a small rub down at turn 14.
Robin's racing minutes.
So it would seem. He can see Steve Owen driving away, though. That's the critical factor.
Johnny Mack's starting to pull away a little bit from Moffat here, so it's interesting to see how the car speed changes through the lap, and in different areas, different cars are faster.
McIntyre has been in the Fujitsu series before, a regular at the endurance races at Phillip Island and Bathurst, and we'd expect him to be back with Stone Brothers Racing later on the year, but a one-off start for him this weekend in Adelaide, and that's the gap from our leader back to second and third. Percat hanging on in fourth in an XHRT Commodore that's in fact 7 years old.
Owen's done the bolt here. Ooh, Moffat clipped the curb pretty hard there on the inside, and here we go.
Here he is down the inside at turn 9. McIntyre can't fight, and Moffat through to second.
It's a good clean move. It was pretty forceful, and Johnny Mack didn't fight it at all. You're right, Nunes.
And look at the margin, though, that Moffat's got to play with. Steve Owen's going to be hard to catch.
He's got a lot of ground to make up, but the car looks like it's working really quite well. He's just got to keep his nose clean, head down, and chase him down.
And this weekend in Adelaide, as is the tradition with the Fujitsu series, it's a 2-race weekend, 24-lap race, so there's plenty of time to play yourself in.
Yeah, you know, it's a tough, challenging circuit here. If you make a small error, you can lose a lot of time. So these guys are really going to be on the top of their game for the full 24 laps.
They're not afraid to attack the curbs in the Fujitsu series. Moffat's through to second. The chase continues for Steve Owen when we come back. Back in Adelaide with the first race of the Fujitsu V8 Supercar Series, and while we were away, the action didn't stop. Jeff Emery put a move on Drew Russell to take 7th place, and then David Russell launched a really good late pass on Tim Blanchard as he continues this fight back through the field.
That's a great pass there, very popular. A lot of teams will be happy now to see Paul in the pits here, not threatened by his exciting driving style.
They call him the dirty, dangerous dude for a reason. Drew Russell had a brake lock-up in the Zamana Anti-Logger Falcon. They had a snap right front shock with this car in qualifying, and they've got another problem in this first race, and he was forced to yield and let Jeff Emery and Ant Pedersen and the rest of the field go by as Blanchard and Percat, the two Formula Ford graduates, getting stuck into it, and Percat just has to live. You know about that corner.
I had a little run-in with Mr. Lowndes there a few years ago, and it hurts if one of you don't back off, so wisely one of them did.
So Percat slips back a spot. The reigning Formula Ford champ is from Adelaide, so he's on home soil. Lock up from Blanchard.
It's probably a little bit of a sign of fatigue for these boys. A lot of them wouldn't have done this many laps in a row. And now on the streets here with the temperatures, it's going to be tough for them.
Having a look at Tim Blanchard here, the 07 Formula Ford champ who went to England in 2008, was runner-up in Formula Ford over there. This is Ryan Hansford, the son of the late, great Greg Hansford, having a little bit of a spin in the Repco Falcon down at turn 14. And John McIntyre, 3 off the deck or 4?
I don't know, whatever it was, I would have been more worried about the sideways as it landed.
He certainly had it hanging out through the chicane. Here's Jeff Emery, 7th, and Pedersen 8th. Rodney Jane, 9th in the Bob Jane T-Mart's Falcon from the Sonic team. And just behind, Paul Fiore, the older brother of Dean Fiore in the car that Dean drove last year. Have a look at this. This is tight.
This is great racing here. Down into 9 is very popular, very good spot to overtake, and but it's easy to block from time to time, which he's just done there.
Emery driving an ex-HRT Commodore, but has switched its preparation in the off-season to Greg Murphy Racing, and also using engines from GMR, which have moved into the old Sprint Gas Tasman shop, which closed down at the end of last year. But he's under fire from Ant Pedersen here, who has come from Mini Challenge in New Zealand, first time in a V8, and showing good signs.
I think he's doing a great job here. He's putting a lot of heat on there, showing a lot of maturity. He hasn't locked up or gone off, and we'll just see how he goes towards the end though.
He's only had a brief run at Winton in this car and also in the Greg Murphy Racing Commodore. So he's racing with the likes of Jeff Emery, 5-time Commodore Cup champion, Rodney Jane with experience in this category, but not on this circuit in this car because he started last year halfway through the year, so still feeling his way around the streets of Adelaide.
That is Jono Webb's car from last year, so it is going to be a good car. Loves those curves. Oh, there's a bit of action for you, Nan, and got the young guy's attention.
I reckon it would. Off the curb is always a difficult one to do, and that's what Rodney Jane did in the background there on the run out of turn 7 towards turn 8, which is really one of the most exciting corners in V8 racing.
Coming to their top gear, Noonan, with a little, got a lunge again here.
Pedersen up the inside. And that move is always set up from the entry to turn 8.
It's really Noonan's done from the exit of 7. If you get a good run out of there, clean run through 9, you can lunge. And he's,
we've spoken too soon. Locker.
Oh, that was close. I've ventured near those tyres previously. If he can stay.
No. Turn 10 brought him undone, so he has to do it all of that great work all over again.
Heating up a little here. Mr. Jane wants to get involved, and it could get quite exciting here, Noonan.
Rodney Jane locking in, started 11th, so has made some good forward progress. Only got 20 laps of testing in at Winton before the start of the season. Ended up having a crash, some repairs required. And Paul Fiore in the background there in the Triple F Commodore, not afraid to throw it at the curb either.
No, it's doing a great job. It's hard to drive in such close proximity to each other here with the tyre bundles.
David Russell here in front now of Tim Blanchard. That's 4th and 5th.
Tim Blanchard's a cracking effort this race, isn't he? He's giving the guy who was second in the championship or 3rd last year, a run for his money. And the car Blanchard's driving is the car that Moffat drove last year. It's an ex-Craig Lowndes Team Vodafone car. And last year he was crewing for his good friend Taz Douglas, who is suffering from cancer. He's on the fight back trail, and we look forward to getting Taz back later in the season in his Commodore. He's one of the really popular guys in the paddock. But Blanchard is behind the wheel. He sits in 5th place. It's race 1 from the streets of Adelaide. The fight for 4th place in the opening race of the Fujitsu V8 Series continues with David Russell in the Team Jayco Falcon under big pressure from Tim Blanchard, who is having his first ever V8 Supercar race. And James Courtney, after 2 test days at Winton, he looks to be adapting well. A cracking effort there, Noonan. Really good job. He looks to be handling the car quite well. Looked after its tyres, and he's giving one of the front runners from last year a real run for his money.
Has picked up backing from CPS Products and Sandon for this weekend, Tim Blanchard. He's got the lights on, so he's accustomed to that.
It's meaning business, Noonan.
Look, David Russell makes a mistake on the run into the chicane.
Very easily drawn in when the car in front of you makes a mistake into there, because you use them for a reference.
Now this run up to turn 4 at this late stage of the day, sun's in the eyes as well, so that's an issue too.
This car looks really quite good through here. He's using, Russell's locked the rears on the entry. Could be an opportunity.
And now he makes a lunge. Blanchard in the gap at turn 6. And contact. Around goes Russell into the fence.
It's a hard car to get out of. Once you commit to passing someone in these V8 Supercars, big, heavy car, you can't get out quite as quickly as what he could have in his Formula Ford. But I don't think he was in the fault here. I think Russell, he goes up the inside here. Russell would know he's there, turns in, and that's what happens.
And Russell ends up in the fence. The damage isn't too bad. He just needs to grab a gear and get going. But Blanchard...
flag will be displayed for car 999 for a pit lane drive-through penalty for a driving infringement.
No real surprises there, but the fact is that he's got a bit of a gap to the cars behind, so he could come in, take this drive-through, get back out and maybe only lose a spot.
See, Noonan, I wouldn't have said that was his fault. I think he was a long way up the inside of him, and I think Russell, if he gave him a little bit of room, they both could have got through there. So I think it's a tough call.
Russell's managed to rejoin, but he was quite delayed, so he's right down the tail of the field, and that will not help in his chase for the championship. Rodney Jane putting the pressure here on Ant Pedersen, and you can see both cars with additional windscreen strips just to try to shield that sun.
It's really tough running in between the buildings and then back out of them with your eyes adjusting. It's give you a bit of a headache, Noonan.
I reckon your driving, you'd give them a headache half the time, wouldn't it?
The noise sort of tends to give you one also.
Oh, right. Is that what it is?
He's looking pretty racy, Jane, here. He could be on for a pass towards the end of the race. There's only a few laps going.
This is also an ex-Sonic Falcon. It's Jamie Winkup's championship and Bathurst-winning car from 2008. And here's Blanchard serving this drive-through penalty. He won't stop in the lane. He'll just roll through at 40 k's per hour.
Feels like forever at that speed.
And he'll rejoin in 5th place. He'll dump a spot to Nick Percat, but while Blanchard receives his penalty. That won't help David Russell.
No, I think David would be rear of the field. He was in the fence for a long time there, trying to get reverse and get out.
In fact, he's back to 14th as his teammate from MW Motorsport here, Ant Pedersen, is still under the gun from Rodney Jane.
See, the tough thing for Ant now would be, it's late in the race. He wouldn't have driven these cars for this length of time before, and Jane's a seasoned professional in the category, so he'll be used to it, which he's just made a mistake and made me look like a fool.
But the issue, I guess, too, is for drivers who are first driving these cars, they have to adapt to the way the car changes over a full race distance, whether it's the fuel that's burnt off, the adjustability in the car. There's a great deal of things to learn.
And also tyre life, Noonan. This track is quite hard on tyres. You've got to be easy on the gas to look after them.
Nick Percat is up to 4th in the J Motorsport Commodore. This car driven last year by Shane Price for the majority of the season.
Percat's up the road, 12 seconds from us.
And Nick is part of Walkinshaw Racing. He trains alongside the likes of Garth Tander and Will Davison and Fabian Coulthard. So he's got a lot of good brains to pick for his first run in V8 Supercars.
I think all the rookies this weekend have done a sensational job so far. They're really doing well, and I don't think it'll be long before they're giving the big guys a run for their money.
Back with our leader, Steve Owen in the Greg Murphy Racing Commodore.
Haven't seen a lot of him this weekend so far. He's been out in front.
Not too many of the other drivers have either. He's been away. Moffat's kept the pressure on, but just hasn't been able to eat into that margin. It's 5.7 seconds last time around. And we fully expected Steve Owen to be very, very strong. They rolled this car out in first practice, and they weren't quite happy with it. But Greg Murphy Racing on target now for possibly their first race win in the series.
Yeah, that's a great effort from Steve here. He hasn't driven a lot over the last couple of years, and to get in here in such a dominant performance, it's a great job to him.
You're saying nice things about him because he's going to be against you at Phillip Island and Bathurst, aren't you?
I will still lunge him happily.
He's got a big job later in the year, teaming up with Jamie Whincup for Team Vodafone, but right now, he is really back to the sort of form we saw him in this series in 2008. And that year, he won the championship, won the first round, and that was a one-off deal as well. So who knows, he might be able to string something together. But Greg Murphy Racing very keen to run this car and also the former Greg Murphy VE Commodore for some drivers this year. And this certainly is a good advertisement.
It's great for him to get all this mileage on street circuits and in cars, in a Commodore as well, because he'll be running one at the end of the year with Whincup. But he hasn't felt pressure until he's got Roland Dane breathing down his neck at last lap of Bathurst.
Down at turn 9 for the final time. He's controlled the field from pole position. Has a lot of experience in these cars now. Doesn't have a full-time drive. Was a full-time Championship Series regular a couple of years back, but has really turned into very much one of the best hired guns going around for the endurance races. Off the final curb into turn 14, and he can cruise it to the line. Steve Owen will take the first checkered flag in the 2010 Fujitsu V8 Supercar Series, and it's the first ever win for Greg Murphy Racing.
I'm sure Greg will be happy. He's done a great job this weekend.
Moffat home in second in the Norton 360 Falcon, and that's the perfect way to start his championship fight. He's also taken a new lap record on his way to the win. Moffat and McIntyre in the top 3. Percat, Blanchard and Pedersen all shone in their first ever V8 Supercar race, and Paul Fiore rounded out the top 10. But our winner, Steve Owen, he's in the pits with Bronny Ingerson.
Well, Steve, for a supposedly one-off drive, you've absolutely demonstrated how great you are in these cars. What a fantastic race, and James Moffat almost had you measured there for the start of the race.
Yeah, it got fairly interesting at the start, but if I was in his position, I'd probably do the same thing and try and get in front and open the doors up, But we got through and got a good gap, and the car's working really well. And everyone at Greg Murphy Racing has just done a great job at making me feel comfortable in the car. And when you're with a good car, with a good team behind you, this is you get a good result.
Race 2 from Adelaide is still to come, but after the break, we check in with a couple of our Formula Ford graduates.